The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning or afternoon, everybody. We see that some folks are still logging in, so we're just going to give a couple of seconds for them to do that, and we will be right back. All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is PJ Kling. I'm the head of product and business development for NuVoodoo. I am joined today by Lee Jacobs, who is our head of research. Today is the second in our spring webinar series. As always, we encourage you to ask questions at the end. I have a feeling there are going to be quite a few given the new stuff that we're going to include today. You can submit those through your GoToWebinar control panel at any point in the presentation. Jake is standing by to compile them while Lee is going through the data. We have quite a few things to cover today, both new technology that we've already planned to talk about, as well as our new reality that has hit us over the last couple of weeks. It is important to be nimble in this business. We need to be able to switch gears quickly as programmers. So we asked the audience some specific questions that we thought were important and would be important to you as you question things internally, like, should I even do my spring promotion? As always, if you signed up for this webinar, even if you missed it, a recording is going to get emailed to you within about 24 hours. If you know someone that didn't get signed up to any of these sessions and think that they could benefit from the info, this and all of our previous webinars can and will be found at nuvoodoo.com/webinars. Let's start with what's on everyone's mind first. For that, I hand the baton over to Lee.
Thanks so much, PJ, and good morning or afternoon to all of you folks who've tuned in, so to speak. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that GoToWebinar is behaving better than GoToMeeting has so far this morning, with a whole lot of the workforce suddenly telecommuting, a whole lot more of the workforce than normally does. I think GoToMeeting is being pounded today. We've seen a lot of latency and lag there, so we'll hope this one works out better. So we had intended today to talk strictly about new technology and how that affects playing a ratings game for those of us involved in programming and running radio stations on a day-to-day basis. But then there's coronavirus, and well, we decided we wanted to know as much as we could about public perception and what's going on in terms of media usage as we all get accustomed to whatever these new realities are that we're dealing with. And so we put a tracking study into the field last week, and so far I think we're up in the realm of about 14,000 respondents. We put these into the field this past Tuesday, and so I'm showing you daily data. We're in the field today as well. So far we've collected a few hundred interviews today, so I did not show the early data from today, but even over the weekend, and we amassed about 4,000 interviews a day on both Saturday and Sunday across the weekend. And what you see here is tracking opinions about coronavirus across this period from past Tuesday up until Sunday. In red, the folks who say they are extremely concerned and have significantly altered their daily or regular activities. That number climbed up to 25% both days this weekend. The people in yellow are concerned, but going about life with a few precautions. Personally, I think I'm someplace in between the red and the yellow, but not sure how I would have answered that had I been responding to this survey. But you see that number as of yesterday at 37%. So if I add those two together, the 25 and the 37, that's over 3 and 5, 62%, who are at least going through a few precautions. In blue, those who are moderately concerned but not panicked, not really doing anything actively. And then in green, the folks who aren't concerned about it at all. And then the couple of 3-4% at the bottom of the chart who say that they are not aware of this whatsoever. We'll be live tracking this. The data are up on our website. Jake will be chatting in a link that you can follow to get to the website and be able to sign up for daily updates of this data on an ongoing basis. In terms of people using radio for information on coronavirus cases in their immediate area, it was 30% when we started out tracking this on Tuesday. It rose up to 36%, 38%, I should say, on Friday, dropped down a little bit over the weekend. We expect that that will probably continue to climb as the news business churns up more and more and more over the days ahead. Now, what media sources are they using for information on coronavirus cases in their immediate area? Well, we looked at kind of 6 major food groups: local TV news, internet or social media, local newspaper being print or online, national papers in print or online, cable news, and radio. And you see it broken out here by the people who say that they are either not at all concerned about it, not so many people going to any of these sources, but a little bit even among those who are pretending that they're not at all concerned, the moderately concerned in blue with slightly higher numbers, higher still among those who are concerned, few precautions, and then those in red, those who are extremely concerned and have significantly altered their regular activities. You see that about half of them are indeed coming to radio for information about coronavirus, and thus it behooves us to make sure that we're doing all of the right things, operating all the right playbooks to get that information to them. As I said, you can live track this information going to our website. The link there is not beautiful, but it's readable, I think, and you can copy it down, or I think Jake's going to chat it in for us, and you can download the latest data, which will include an update from just earlier today by clicking on the link on that page, or you can sign up for regular updates on the information. So PJ.
So what do we do with that info? Well, look, some of this stuff is going to seem like common sense, but everyone is stressed. You've already been thinking about how to approach this from your brand's perspective. These are more best practices intended to help as you put together your plan. Number one, don't panic. Do not feed the fear. There's already a ton of misinformation out there. You don't want to be a source of hysteria. You are a part of the community. That means you have a responsibility to deliver facts and confirmed information. Find your scientific sources now so that you have reliable, credible information when you need to relay it to your audience. Number two is basically be prepared. I would suggest having a disaster preparedness plan. If you live in Tornado Alley or you're a coastal city that clinches up every time hurricane season hits, you probably already have one. If you've lived through any disasters like that, you've learned that after the disaster hits is not the right time to come up with a plan. So do it now, and hopefully you'll never need it. If you already have one, figure out how to adapt it to a pandemic. If you live in an area that's never faced disaster scenarios, if you've never even given it any thought, use your network to find another programmer who's been through it so they can give you some best practices. If this gets bad, you got to know where you can send people when they ask, which should probably be coronavirus.gov to start, or a place on your site specifically dedicated to information that they need, especially local information. That's really where we have an opportunity to best serve our audiences. Know who in your building is going to do what by when if there's a quarantine, or if and when station personnel get sick, and there is a strong chance that that will happen. You got to have guidelines for your talent, have experts ready to go on the air, know how many times an hour you're going to provide updates, or if and when you're going to go to long form non-music programming or start simulcasting a sister news station. Again, hopefully not something that has to happen, but better to have a plan for it. Go to nab.org/coronavirus and check out their toolkit. Don't be afraid to let your local government know that you're an asset for them if they need something communicated quickly. And then number three, wash your hands, don't touch your face. I know that everybody is saying that, but there's a reason for it. Those two things alone are going to make a huge difference for you and your coworkers personally, and allow you to service the community that's going to be counting on you. In fact, Inside Radio actually put together a good list of how to make a safer radio studio, how to clean things properly, some tips and tricks on what you can bring with you to help with that. Jake, if you don't mind chatting that in so that everybody can see that, you can copy and paste that into a browser and check that out. This is going to be a weird couple of months. Everybody needs to remember that you are part of the community. People are going to get lonely because they're going to be stuck at home. Consider the impact of putting people on the air so that there is a sense of connection and what that could do for them. But look, life's going to get back to normal. When it does, radio still needs to look to the future of the medium and how they can compete in an ever-changing media landscape. We've got connected cars and smart speakers and podcasting, all changing the ways that audiences consume media. But each also offers opportunities for radio to evolve as the landscape does. Lee?
Thanks very much, PJ. And so from this point forward, we'll not be talking about coronavirus, although there will be time for questions if there are specific questions at the end of this deck. Won't take too much of your time. We're going back to Ratings Prospect Study 15 to kind of finish the picture that we'd started painting in the first of the webinars in this series. 3,943 persons 14 to 64, or winnow it down to 3,205 persons 14 to 54 for much of what I'll be sharing today. Across all 48 ppm markets, proportional to market population, weighted total population for gender, age, and ethnicity, and conducted using compensated online sample back in January, as we do all of our research here at NuVoodoo. Four biggest things in today's deck. Rating susceptibles, we call them ratings likelies, the ppm and diary yeses. They matter more than ever. We'll take a look at podcasting quickly. Is there a there? I mean, you hear a lot of buzz about it, so are people really receptive to the idea of using podcasts that are tied to radio stations? Connected cars, depending upon what things are like where you work, sometimes it feels like everybody's got one of those. It's not that big in the fleet, but it's a significant number and enough that we can start to see what happens to broadcast radio usage when you've got all these other options on your dashboard. And finally, smart speakers. We've been tracking these for a number of years now. They keep growing and growing and growing, and we've got a little more data to share there. So hope you'll stick around. Rating susceptibles matter more than ever. They're the people who we gotta have for us because they're the ones who pay most attention. So it behooves us to know as much as we can about them. These 7 columns among the 14 to 54s in our sample, the total column. Then the ppm knows, the people who no way, no how, wouldn't take a meter, can't imagine that the rest of the people in their household would comply with that. They are the ppm knows. The ppm likelies or yeses are in the next column to the right. And you see that the percentages there showing half an hour usage a day, at least 30 minutes a day to these different sources, start to get really huge. They're people who like listening to things. They're good consumers of audio. The ppm 60 column is a subset of those ppm likelies who also say they use terrestrial broadcast radio, either AM or FM, at least an hour a day. Of course, all of them listen to FM for at least 30 minutes a day. That's easy. And then the same 3 columns regarding diary behavior. While we were in only the ppm markets, we think this is more a psychographic of would you be tethered to a pager for months and months, or would you keep a 1-week written diary of your radio listening for kind of a minimal reward? They're similar but different. The two groups are a wonderful Venn diagram. They overlap, but not entirely. They are also the people, the ppm likelies or diary likelies, who are more likely to touch you. They're the ones who are most likely to have liked or commented or shared one of your social media posts. So if you've got a post that does get shared, you stand an outsized chance of having a time when you are actually communicating with somebody who's within the ratings pool. They are also people who are more likely to listen to you streaming and use your mobile apps. They're the people who are more likely, and this is just within the past week. These are big numbers. I mean, among the ppm knows, downloaded a station app, 9% in the last week. Among the ppm likelies or diary likelies, that's about 3 and 8, 37 or 38%, looking at those 2 different columns. Podcasting. Is there a there? Well, there's certainly a lot of addiction. You'll see these numbers among the ppm and diary likelies, in particular favorite podcasts. That's about 3/5 of them who say they're addicted to a favorite podcast, close on to the percentages who say that they're addicted to a favorite broadcast radio station, be it AM or be it FM. Now, in the wider scope, we also looked at addiction to smartphones and social media, and those numbers are just through the roof. That's 81% of this sample of 14 to 54s who say they feel addicted to their smartphones, 66% who say they're addicted to social media. And those numbers just go up among the media actives who are likely to show up within the rating samples, be they diary samples or be it metered samples. And you'll note that podcast addiction rivals radio when you look at men 25-44. That is the epicenter of podcasting, those who are unfazed by the technology involved. It seems transparent to them. They're the people who are helping their parents on the upper side, or younger siblings on the lower, or spouses or girlfriends. They're the folks who are in the middle of this most of all. But podcasts are sweeping a lot of people. And you'll notice that among the PPM or diary likelies, within the last week, about half say that they've listened to a podcast from any source, and about that same number say they've listened to a radio station podcast. These ratings inclined people who are kind of in the middle of this media consumption frenzy, they like listening to things and they like radio stations, so you stand an outsized chance of being able to launch your podcast. And look, there are times when that may be in your way, but for the most part right now, radio usage is often defined by where it's easiest to consume, and for many people that's in the car, and podcasts are a little bit trickier there. Podcasts often end up being used in times when broadcast isn't so available or isn't something they think to use, and it becomes additive to your brand, although not necessarily accretive to your ratings. I just want to cover this for just a moment because we do have the benefit of over 700 baby boomers, 55 to 64s within this sample. And there's sometimes the wistfulness among broadcast operators that, well, it's a shame we can't really, monetize 55 to 64 as well, because boomers are people who grew up with and loved and used radio their entire lives. The problem is that as they start to retire, and that's the leading edge of those who are starting to retire, in fact, what happens is their addiction rates go down for broadcast radio, be it AM or FM, you see, compared to the Gen Xers who are just next to them younger. Addiction rates go down because they're not necessarily touching it with that regularity that the workaday world requires. And we'll also see that among the 55 to 64s, the percentages spending at least a half an hour a day with either AM or FM go down. Without that daily commute, without that daily tether to a workplace, they just become a little less connected. So what happens to radio usage in a connected car? Well, it's not all of the fleet. It's about a quarter of the fleet, according to our data of 14 to 54s. It's not all, but about 26%, and that 26% leans a little bit male, more male than female, and a little bit to the 25 to 44, 18 to 24 end, as you'd expect. These are the guys who are most concerned about the new tech device and most drawn to, well, I'm getting a new car, I have an opportunity to trade up, I'm going to get a car that's got the latest toy, which in this case is so often the audio stack. The good news, however, is that addiction to broadcast radio doesn't diminish with people who have a connected car. That's the dark brown or dark red bars, columns on the hard right side. So you see, overall, 45% say they're addicted to a favorite FM station. If you have a traditional car, AM, FM, maybe cassette or CD stack, 48%. If you have satellite on the dashboard, it drops imperceptibly, and it actually goes up concerning for connected cars, concerning favorite FM or favorite AM station. You're more focused on the audio options you've got and thus feel even more strongly. And FM takes just a little bit of a dip. It's actually up from the total sample. 44% say they use at least 30 minutes of FM on a daily basis. And it's 46% among those who have a connected car. And AM actually goes up. We posit that some of those are people who suddenly have HD radio, and AM thus sounds better. But actually the percentages using AM at least 30 minutes a day goes up within the connected car sample. I'm not counting on that staying up as more and more people get connected cars, but what we take away from this is we shouldn't fear the connected car. We need to lean into it. Lots of opportunities. Smart speakers, finally, they keep growing and growing and growing. We shadowed this on the title slide. So that as of January, a couple of months ago, we see 56% of our sample of 14 to 54s say they have a smart speaker in their lives. That's not one per person, but that's one in their lives. Might be one in the kitchen or the bedroom or wherever within the home that several people have access to. And because the PPM and diary likelies are just people more attuned to audio who really like listening to things, the percentages among the PPM and diary likelies are up, and those who really like to listen, the PPM and diary 60s, the percentages who have a smart speaker in their lives go up even higher. We've also been tracking whether it's Google or Amazon. If you go north of the border into Canada, these numbers flip upside down, and Google's the dominant brand, and Amazon is playing catch up. But here in the States, it goes from it being almost entirely Amazon's game a few years ago to Amazon still solidly in the lead, but Google making an impression and winnowing away, trying to get at parity with them. In terms of where are they, if I trend year over year, it's holding up in the bedroom. In fact, even more so, even on more smart speakers out there in the world. The bedroom is a primary location for many, many people. And we think that's incredibly exciting, given that the clock radio has gone the way of the rotary phone, and just aren't a lot of them out there. But here's an opportunity for people to listen to things, not necessarily watch things. The TV bedroom habit has become a big thing, where the GMA or Today gets popped on in the morning and sort of burbles along while you're getting ready. But now there's an opportunity that you could listen to something, and if we just posit the idea and keep plugging at it and make sure they know exactly how to get your station on their smart speaker when they want it, you have the possibility of getting some quarter hours while they're still at home. And we think that's an exciting opportunity. And in fact, they are using broadcast radio from their smart speaker, the streaming variant, that is. And these are percentages who say they use these skills regularly. It's not just occasionally, but regularly. That's 43% listen to an FM station from their area on their smart speaker on a regular basis, and that's on parity with the streamers and and way above podcasting. That's an exciting opportunity. Of course, you're only really going to get the benefit from it either because your company has an amazing digital sales possibility, great digital sales play, or you're using total line reporting so that these numbers are accretive to what you're putting out over your broadcast signal. And rating susceptibles like listening on smart speakers. So as I said, make sure you have a plan to monetize that listening, because it can be significant. And they spend more time with radio. How much time do you spend listening to each of the following? Typical day, these percentages say at least 30 minutes a day, 44% overall for FM radio. But among the population who have a smart speaker, FM radio goes from 44 up to 50%, AM radio goes from 22 up to 29%. That's opportunity. So there's a whole lot of data across a whole lot of topics in not too much time. And so we've got ample time for questions if there are any. Jake?
Yeah, thank you for your questions. First question is, going back to coronavirus, should music stations benchmark information or just ignore coronavirus and serve as an escape?
Well, that's going to be really up to you and your brand. In my opinion, though, this is where radio really needs to get back to the basics. You're part of the community, so I think you owe it to the audience to at least tell them where to get info, even if it's not you. Look, a quick hourly update, it can be a jock, a TV partner, a sister news station, whatever. That quick hourly update and a page on your site with a collection of good info could be all you need. Again, leave that up to you. People are stressed to the gills right now because they just don't have answers. So I think it's important to be a source for whatever answers you can get your hands on.
Great. Next question
also,
is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Let me also interject for a sec that this is also an amazing opportunity. You may not have breaking information all the time or relevant new information from your community, but you can always remind people, to reach out to, older friends. This is an opportunity for people to make connections and try to help each other out, because there are some who just need that right now. I mean, it may not be scary for you to go to the store, but it might be scary for your parents or for a neighbor up the street who maybe isn't in touch with their children. And that's an opportunity and something the station can try to hook up and remind people about.
Great. Next question is still in relation to coronavirus. What are we advising clients to do about spring book contesting and playing the ratings game?
Look, I'm sure that's because we're about to get right into all that with spring books right around the corner. I know that's got to be, kind of topic A in a lot of people's heads. We've seen nothing in the data that suggests that you should stop or that listening levels are tanking because of this. In fact, the contrary. But common sense would tell you that some of how we package promotions and contesting would come across as a little tone deaf if you just keep doing things as is. Instead, I'd argue that you should do it, but rethink how it's packaged. Think practical over experiential. You're not sending someone on a shopping spree, you're helping them pay their bills. You're not giving them a chance to live like a pop star, you're giving them a chance to make their mortgage payment this month. If you were in radio in 08, 09, 2010, you remember that recession and the changes to our approach that we had to make. The economic impact of what's going on right now is going to be felt long after the coronavirus is in our rearview mirror. It's probably going to be the lens with which you view all of your promotions going forward, at least in the near term. Lee, I know you've done study data around that and at that time. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but I'm sure there's a lot.
Well, you said it very nicely. I mean, when we actually opened the doors for NuVoodoo, was that a good idea at the end of 2010? I guess we're still here. I guess that part's good. But we had seen at the time the power of pay your bills kinds of promotions, contest cash attached to tangible things that people could do with it or would do with it, far more than the experiential kind of, hey, we're all having fun, everybody's got enough money, here's an extra kick for you so you can take an even groovier vacation. Now the concerns become a little more mundane in this sort of an environment, but still nevertheless incredibly important. So much radio listening is, so much media use and radio along with it across the next few months. It's an incredible opportunity to influence a lot of ears and make a lot of impressions. I can't imagine why you'd give up on a contest, but I think giving serious consideration to making sure that it optimizes to the opportunity today and emphatically isn't tone deaf for how people are feeling is critically important.
Great. Last question is, are you tracking how rating susceptibles are using the radio during this pandemic, or can we infer that it's just like all our other data that PPM and diary people are more likely to engage?
We're letting it in. We're choosing to take the inventory of questions that we have because we're trying to get as much data as we can as quickly as possible. So we're choosing to lean on finding pertinent information quickly, and we're going to infer that with the ratings likelies, it will be just more so.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your questions.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We update our coronavirus data daily. You can find that right now and every day at NuVoodoo.com, right at the top of the page. And more specifically, the link that you see there on your screen, you can feel free to screenshot this, or you can get it from the chat that Jake put in there. Also, if you missed anything from today's webinar, if there was a delay in getting you logged in and we got started before you could, or you just want to review what we showed, a recording is going to be emailed to you within the next 24 hours and posted next week to NuVoodoo.com/webinars once we've gotten through all of them. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us for your time today. Wash your hands, don't touch your face. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, folks.